All right, let's get started. Again, welcome everybody. Thanks for logging in. I know your time is valuable, and I want to make sure we deliver serious value for this time we're going to spend together today. The topic, subject matter is inside the exhibiting numbers. We're going to go through some specific ways to measure and report both exhibiting performance and return on investment. This is part of the Academy's commitment to you as exhibitors to add serious value, add to your knowledge base, and help your company get results from the time and money you invest in AAO events. As part of this commitment, you see on the screen, we've got the Online Exhibitor Resource Center. This is you and your exhibit staff's 365, 24/7 free knowledge portal. So you can view live webinars, you can view replays there, there's articles, there's downloadable tools. We're trying to bring you the latest and best thinking consistently on how to make your trade show program work. So be sure to bookmark the page, visit often because we're continually updating, and share it with everybody on your exhibiting team as a place to go and continue to learn on how to improve performance. Most of you with me today have probably seen me around the show. I've been working with the Academy now for over 10 years. Providing exhibitor educational programs in all types, from live seminars to webinars to our exhibit evaluation program. And this is pretty much my wheelhouse. I live and breathe trade shows, been around shows now for almost 30 years. Like all of you, have been involved in many shows, and I've never viewed a show as a place to just show up and fly the flag and, you know, pass out some business cards and go home. I've always been in a position where I've had to make every dollar do the work of 10 or 20. And to that end, over the last 20 plus years as a consultant trainer, I've been on the search for the best practices and how do we form those into processes that are replicable that we can apply. And of my clients, we've done tracking. Combined, we've been able to trace over $650 million in results from shows. So if you ever want to talk shows, pick up the phone, call me, drop me an email. You can reach me through the Resource Center. Would love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and get started now. We got much to cover in a little time here. And you're looking at the screen now and you're seeing the scale and, you know, the left side of the scale, the spend side in red is weighed down. It's the heavy side and the results are light. And for too many companies, trade shows end up as expensive appearances. And so what we're trying to do over all the content we're providing is to help you tip the scale the other direction, where the measurable business value and results that your company get far outweigh the spend on shows. So I want to start off with a poll here just to kind of get a handle on with the group that's online. And by the way, your answers are confidential. No one can see. So I want to ask where you are on your satisfaction level with the return on investment you're getting from shows. You'll see 5 choices on the screen. At the top of the tier, you're very satisfied, and you're just looking, how can I take it higher? You're satisfied, you know, it's okay. You're in that somewhat range, or you're not. You're saying, you know, we got to get more, and honestly, for some of us, I don't really know where we're at with the results and the ROI. Situation. So go ahead, take a moment, fast as fingers, press the radio button that applies to how you feel, and I'll share the results in just a moment with everybody so you can kind of see where we are across the board here. Okay. All right, we've got over 80% of the votes in. Thank you for the fast reply on that. Let me share what we're seeing here. Okay, so we don't have anybody that's on the very satisfied. Well, I'm glad you logged in because we're going to definitely try to move you in that direction. Only 7% of us are saying we're in that satisfied. You know, it's good. Congratulations. Hopefully we're going to fill some blanks, help you push up into the very. Over half of us are in that somewhat range. We're somewhat satisfied. And then we've got 21% who are the not really, you know, this is something we really need to improve. And then we got about 20% of us who don't know. And you know what's interesting about this whole ROI thing is the truth is that many of us are getting significant value in ROI, but we can't see it. We can't measure it. we know what we spent, and we have a general sense of what we've got in terms of booth traffic and lead count, but we don't really have the systems in play. We either don't have a closed loop lead management system in play so we can track business back, or we don't have the performance metrics identified so we can start to measure the performance of what's working and what we need to improve. So that's what we're going to hit big time today, okay? So let's start off, kind of thinking about, trade shows are a big investment of human and financial capital. And if the program's working, what should it be doing at a high level? What are a couple of the key outcomes? Well, here's two that I think are top tier outcomes for any marketing sales investment. Number one is that it should visibly and directly support core business objectives of your company. So when you look at marketing and sales and customer relationship management and whatever goals your company's trying to achieve, you want your senior management to know, understand, and see where and how specifically the exhibit program is supporting core business objectives. So on a 1 to 10, and this is kind of a self-rate thing, kind of give yourself a little score there. How well do you feel the program is supporting core objectives, 1 to 10? And the second area is delivering value beyond cost, ideally measurable. And I already polled you on that, so I have a sense of where you're at on that. And if you talk to any senior executive in a company, these are the two expectations, desires, wants, hopes that they have about your exhibiting program. So as exhibit managers, as marketing managers, as sales management, it's our job to get the exhibiting program to do these two things. And I tell you what, if you do get the program to deliver these two, your visibility in the company, your value to the company, the ultimate rewards that can come your way can blow your mind. So that's what we're trying to do here, is get it in this direction. So let's kind of prime our mental pump here on this whole return on investment conundrum here. The first question I want to ask you, and this is in your workbook thing, I want you to jot your answers to these, is do you think it's possible to measure trade show ROI? There are a lot of people running around out there that are saying it's not possible to measure exhibiting ROI. I think by the end of this webinar, you'll know that that's probably not the whole story, okay? It is possible to measure ROI. So if you believe that it is possible, then do you measure now? And that's a yes or no. Yeah, or maybe it's a somewhat. We kind of somewhat do. And if you do measure, what I'd like you to jot down quickly is how. What are you measuring? Okay, most of us are measuring our costs by area. We're measuring maybe show traffic, maybe booth traffic, maybe lead count. But beyond that, what are you measuring? Okay, and then finally, what factors? Since the 21%, well, nobody was on the very satisfied side of the spectrum here. So I want to ask you this question. What factors do you feel most limit your company's ability to get return on investment from trade shows? And what I'd like you to do on that is via the question function. I'd like to hear from some of you on this webcast. And again, I won't share your names or anything, but I just want to hear what flashes for you when we're not getting ROI. What is standing in the way? Go ahead and send me those via and you don't have to type it as a question. We're not playing Jeopardy here. You can just type the word. So go ahead, send me a few of those. Here's what I think is limiting our ability to get ROI, and I'll share some of those as we go on. So go ahead and do that. Type away. Give me some factors that you feel that are limiting. All right. So as your fastest fingers sending me in all your limiting factors, which I am very eager to see and share, I want to talk a little bit about some of these prerequisites if we're going to bring measurement into the exhibiting game, some of the prerequisites that need to be in play. The first one is we've really got to develop what I call a get from versus a get through the show perspective. And I know many of you listening to me today that are exhibit managers that are encumbered with all of the logistical operational details of it. get stuck there, but somebody has to. If we're really going to get ROI from this large investment, somebody's got to take the reins on this. And we've really got to come from that. We're here to get from the show, not just get through it. Okay? And the next one is scratch the word expense from your vocabulary. Because I can promise you this, however you see something, and if you see trade shows as an expense, I can virtually guarantee they're going to end up as an expense for your company. On the other hand, if you will see trade shows as an investment, and now you're going to come from where and how can we get value and ROI, and what specifically are we going to start measuring, it will end up as an investment. Okay, and primarily it's a marketing, it's a sales, it's a customer relationship management investment. But we've got to come from that place of investment, not expense. That's our second prerequisite here. Our third one is getting out of the logistics trap. Get the space, booth, people, products in, up, down, out, and back, on time and on budget, and that's where we're living. We're spending 95% of our time over there. We've got to carve out some time as a team, and this is not just you, the exhibit manager, but this is your marketing leadership, your sales leadership, your product management leadership, and we've got to invest more time on the critical factors that drive revenue and ROI. Okay, and if you look in your workbook, we've identified 4 major factors. The first one is outcomes, where you're stepping forward into the future and you're asking, when the doors close on the AAO annual meeting, 180 days after the show, how will we know we succeeded? And you've got to begin with clear outcomes, and this is an area we've talked about a lot over the years through articles, through webinars, exhibiting by objectives. You have reasons that are converted to goals, that are backed with a written action plan, that are communicated to the entire team, that are executed and measured, and that is where you begin on the quest to getting ROI, is clear outcomes with written action plans. And the second thing then, you start looking at attraction, and what I like to call selective attraction. Who is our ideal visitor within the AAO audience, and what are we doing before and during the show to get in their mind and on their agenda? What form of marketing, what form of sponsorships, what form of advertising, what are we doing on site with our exhibit and everything? And we've got to get enough of the right people to our exhibit. And now we're addressing the second critical success factor of attraction. The third factor is the exhibit experience, the visitor experience. And in that, we're thinking about our exhibit, our product demonstration presentations, and our staff. And we're making sure that we have all of those things in alignment. And over the last 3 years, we've been coming to the show and doing the exhibiting effectiveness evaluations and giving you reports on saying, here's what's working, keep doing this, and here's the blind spots, here's the areas to improve. So as you improve the quality of the visitor experience, you move toward ROI. And the fourth critical success factor is follow through and measurement. Okay, what is happening when the doors close with all the people we interacted with? How are we tracking? What are we reporting? And how are we measuring? And so those are the critical success factors, the strategic side of the game, the beyond logistics side of the game, that if we address those 4 things well, the question is not, are we going to succeed and get value in ROI? The question becomes, how successful are we going to be? And they sound similar, but they're completely different questions. So think about those: outcomes, attraction, managing the visitor experience, follow through, and measurement. How well is your company addressing those 4? If you're addressing all 4 of them well, you'll succeed. If you neglect any one or any combination of those 4, you're going to struggle with shows. It's really that simple, okay? So let's talk measurement here, move into this ROI thing. People go, why measure? Well, there's an old saying that what gets measured gets done. And I would add to that and say that what gets measured gets improved. And I would add to that and say what gets measured gets you positive recognition within the company for taking what maybe senior management views, as a necessary evil and expense, and turning it into an investment that is visibly supporting objectives and delivering measurable value beyond cost. And your value within the goes way up in the organization. Hey, if someone's asking you or your department, why are we spending this? What are we getting? You need to be measuring. Why? To justify the program. And that third why of the measurement piece is, as you start implementing both performance and financial performance metrics, you're going to start seeing what's working, what's not working, and your measurement system will be as much a business intelligence tool as it is a reporting and validation tool. So some strong reasons to be measuring, and I think everybody should be measuring, because you don't have unlimited budgets, and you got overchoice on where to really invest your budgets. Now, there's a lot of benefits to it, and I'm not going to hit these one by one, but one of the great things of a measurement program is to determine your level of investment in a show. Example, what if you implemented a measurement system and you found that every dollar your company was investing in the AAO annual meeting was bringing $25 of top-line revenue back to the company? Number one, you're going to be a hero, a rock star. But number two, with that kind of return on investment, I would be looking at investing more in the show, right? So I can start playing this game maybe at a bigger level, and that doesn't matter what size company I'm listening to here or talking to. That would just be one of those benefits of measuring. Okay, so let's jump into move into money and budgeting and just hit some high notes on this topic. Okay, zero-based budgeting is essentially looking at every line item and being clear about where and how that is supporting the mission and the outcomes, and that it is delivering real value. Because when we start to really look at each line item, we realize there are some areas that we're overspending on, and maybe we can get control over there to either reduce the total or invest more into the critical areas that I'll show you in a moment here. The budgeting rule of thumb, if you're not familiar with this, as a starting point, is to take floor space times 3 to 5. And that's a starting point for the exhibiting program, okay? So if you're in a single booth and the cost of the booth is $3,500, then you should be up in that $11,500 up to that $16,500 at least range. And now you're going to have enough resources to do the show right instead of doing it maybe on the lower end or what looks like the cheap, so to speak. So floor space times 3 to 5. And by the way, a lot of your marketing expenditures and sponsorships and advertising and things that are around the show sometimes end up in the show budget, sometimes not. Sometimes they'll end up in as part of your annual marketing budget as versus the exhibit-specific budget. It's all a function of what that sponsorship or what that advertising media does and what objectives it's supporting, again, as to where you should allocate and where you should charge it to, so to speak. Okay, here's the leverage points in the, and I'm going to show you in a minute the 9 areas where the dollar goes. But here's your leverage points. These are the 2 areas that I would suggest we find more and try to increase our investing. One of them is anything and everything that drives qualified booth traffic, okay? Number 1. And number 2, anything and everything that can improve the quality of the visitor experience in your exhibit. Those are the 2 leverage points. There's a lot of hemming and hawing, with exhibitors out in the medical healthcare exhibiting arena that, maybe the surgeons, the attendees, aren't spending enough time in the exhibit hall. And here's what I want to say very directly is we got to do our part as exhibitors, okay? AAO will do a world-class job of creating the venue and getting them to the venue and getting them into the venue and getting them into the hall. But every exhibitor, has got to think of their exhibit as a worthy destination, and they've got to design that visitor experience so there's no place else the attendee would want to be. and you guys as a universe do a pretty good job, but based on our E3 evaluations over the last 3 or 4 years, there's definite room for improvement. And so I want you to stand outside of your exhibit, each and every one of you listening today, and I want you to ask yourself, what is it about our exhibit and the experience in the exhibit that is going to cause a surgeon or medical professional to put us on their must-visit list, which is where we want to end up at. Okay? So budget more. Now, let's talk dollars here and where it goes. In North America, the average company allocates 40.3% of their annual marketing budget is going to exhibit event marketing. Within that budget, it's being spent in 9 specific or major groups or areas, as you see on the screen here, with floor space, the exhibit, show services, shipping, freight, travel and entertainment, promotion, lead management, staff training, and other. And I share these statistics with you, so you have a benchmark. And here's the idea. It's not that you're going to be exact on any of these, but if you find yourself high, way beyond any of these, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means you should look under the hood. On the contrary, if you find yourself below in any of these areas, doesn't mean you're wrong, but you should take a look under the hood just to see. Again, and I mentioned the 2 areas that I thought offer the greatest leverage is that orange slice up on the top where it says promotion, 6%, and the overall exhibit experience, which I'm going to actually put under red, exhibit design, and that 1% at the top, exhibit staff training, because your people are going to have a significant impact on the visitor experience. So where are you? Are you tracking? Are you using these as benchmarks? Okay, you should be, and we've got a complimentary exhibiting cost control tool available to you. You can either email, and I have to check if it's up on the Exhibitor Resource Center. If it's not, we'll get it up there. But feel free to request that by email. You could email me, Jefferson@tradeshowturnaround.com. Again, Jefferson@tradeshowturnaround.com. I'll be happy to send you that tool, complimentary, no charge, courtesy of the Academy, so you can get better control of where your dollars go on and benchmark it. Okay? I'm not going to go through all these because they're in your workbook, but we've kind of taken the major areas and given you some quick hitters, some best practices on how you may be able to save money in these different areas, which is a nice way to attack, where the dollar is going, and, so literally by major area. Those are in your workbook, so go ahead, come back to this and make sure you're doing everything and anything you can, that you're not overspending on, in areas where you don't need to be. And this would be a good spot here to kind of fire up any questions that have flashed in on what we've talked about. And I got a bunch of things in the queue, so I'm going to share some of the these factors that you feel are limiting ROI. Well, first one we got is presentations or displays that are not really of interest to visitors. Yes, okay? Remember, they have overchoice of where to spend their time, and if your exhibit, presentation, demonstration, or your display doesn't really grab attention and communicate value, they're going to pass right by. Okay? Someone mentioned in here their concern is what's limiting our ROI is competing with the attendee education schedules. Well, here's the thing, okay? Medical healthcare shows across the board are primarily educational / scientific technical events. The fastest way for us to succeed as exhibitors is to not come into a show like this with a heavy buy-sell model, but to understand that the attendees are coming there to learn. So here's your question. What can you teach them in 3 to 5 minutes in your exhibit that they might not know about what you do, and make that the focal point of your exhibit experience? They're coming to learn. If they see visiting the exhibit hall and your exhibit as an adjunct to the learning, they'll come to your exhibit. The question is, what are you teaching them? Okay, this is an area all of us, I think, can get a thoughtful on. What is hot? What's top of the mind? What are the challenges? What are the frustrations? And let's bring more of an education. Let's quickly, immersively teach them something in our booth, because they're not experts on your products. You are. What do they need to know that they probably don't know? I feel that our sales team is not effective at getting our prospects to come by. Yeah, that's a big problem. You know, you've really got to get your sales team about 6 to 8 weeks before showtime, putting together a list of customers, prospects, suspects, and having a one-to-one campaign to get them to the show and to get them to your booth. Okay, and that's a strategy that needs to be orchestrated and managed, and it works best if you will get buy-in from senior sales management to drive what I like to call the CPS, customer, prospect, suspect model. And if anyone has specific questions, wants to know more about that, again, feel free to email me, contact me. Be happy to give you more information on that. We've got a comment here. Trade shows have become less of a buying environment and more of an information-seeking event. It's not that trade shows have become less of that. It's, let me come back and say what I said before, is that it's that understanding that every show has a dominant and a subdominant personality. And the 4 personalities of a show are, here they are. Educational, 1. Scientific technical, 2. Buy-sell, 3. Social relationship, 4. And almost every show is an amalgam of all those personalities. What's important for us to understand as exhibitors is that understanding the personality of the show we're exhibiting in and aligning our strategy with the personality of the show. By the way, education is the means to the end game of what? Changing behaviors, changing procedures, changing vendors, changing practices. So education is the means, buying is the end goal. So let's focus on the means and do a good job there, and the end will begin to work itself. Okay? Someone asked again for my email address. It's Jefferson@tradeshowturnaround, all one word, tradeshowturnaround.com. Let me see. Someone says qualifying what sales closed at shows versus those that would have been reached in the normal course of business. Closed loop lead management, tracking, and also tracking where people are in the sales cycle as they enter and after the show. Trade shows compress or shorten sales cycles when they're done properly. Okay, and that's a deep topic that we should probably come back and ultimately get a webinar specifically on lead management and sales cycle management through shows, because it's a very deep topic. All right, well, thanks for your input and questions. Let's come back to let's roll up our sleeves now. Grab your pen. I think it might be useful to have a calculator. Make sure you got that workbook in front of you here. I am going to take you through very specific performance metrics. Some of these are trade show performance metrics. Some of these are financial performance metrics. And so we're going to share through these. None of these are mystical, magical. None of them are super complicated. They're pretty easy to run. It's just a matter of knowing them and applying them. So let's get busy here. Number 1, trade shows are about face, all right? Any real results that you get from a show is going to come from putting your company identity, your staff, your products, face-to-face with somebody to get a next step, okay? And knowing that they're about face, we have a model that we call exhibit interaction capacity. You do not have a unlimited or infinite amount of face-to-face interaction. I think it's important that you understand how much you do have, and then you can make a lot of adjustments to your program, as you'll see, by understanding this model. Simple formula. Number of exhibiting hours in the show, multiply by your full-time staffing equivalent. How many people are going to be in that booth, wire to wire, for the purpose of talking to visitors? By the way, the benchmark or the best practice is 50 square feet of open space per staffer. Now that levels out when you get into a much larger booth, okay? But as a starting point. So if you're in a 10 by 10 booth, you got room for 2. Maybe. And notice the emphasis on maybe. 3. 4? No. You're not going to have room for the most important person, the visitor. So you take the number of hours in the show by the full-time staffing equivalent. And by the way, I want you to run these formulas with me as I'm presenting them. That way you'll own it when we're done. You'll get it, you'll own it. Now, you take a target number of interactions per hour per staffer. Let me explain. 3, conservative. 4, moderate, 5, aggressive. So if you want to play this conservative, the average booth staffer will talk to 3 people on an average hour. The average booth staffer will talk to 4. The average will talk to 5. Okay, that level. Multiply whatever numbers you plug into this formula, and you have got your exhibit interaction capacity. This is telling you how much space you have, okay, for face-to-face, one-to-one interaction in your exhibit. Important number to know. You see, now when I know that my exhibit interaction capacity is 224, I don't care if the show has 18,000 attendees or 7,000 attendees or 3,000 attendees. What I care is, are there enough of the right people in that show audience that I can get what? 224 face-to-face, one-to-one interactions. And I'm not going to just show up and hope they find me. I'm going to do good pre-marketing, good analysis. My sales team's going to be working it. I want most of my capacity spoken for before I ever get to the show. I would love this, to show up with 224 capacity and 190 of that spoken for, whether it is confirmed appointments or whether it is verbal commitments. But I'm going to try to get as much of that spoken for. And by the way, if I don't like the number, the 224, I go, that's not much. I'm going to change the variables. Can I change the number of hours in the show? No. Can I change the number of booth staff? Within reason, remember your 50 square foot rule. Can I change the number of interactions per hour per staffer? Yes. With really good pre-marketing, with a well-designed exhibit, with a great experience, and a well-trained staff, you definitely can influence the number of interactions per hour per staffer. Okay, and that's what you want to do, is try to influence that. So that's your first formula. Okay, now, performance metric. How much of your capacity did you actually utilize? Because what you're buying is capacity for face, right? So let's say that I was able to track 140 interactions through my exhibit, and I had a capacity of 224 interactions. Then my utilization was 63%. Okay, is it good? Is it bad? Well, I've got room for improvement here, because I want to see that my capacity utilization at least 80%. I want to push to 100%, and there are many times when I can go beyond 100%. But if you're not at 80% utilization, now this is a performance metric that I need to start looking under the hood. I need to look at my exhibit. I need to look at my targeting. I need to look at my pre-marketing. I need to look at my demonstration presentation. I need to look at my staff performance. I need to look at all this stuff to figure out what's going on, because odds are super, super high that there are way more than 224 of the right people at the show. The problem wasn't that they weren't at the show. The problem was they weren't at your booth. And those are two different problems. And yet, as exhibitors, we'll often generalize about that problem. We'll think, well, there's not enough people at the show. Well, there are at the show. They just weren't at your booth. The competition for attendees' time is fierce. Okay, and so you got to do the right things pre and at if you're going to get your fair share. And trust me, your fair share is there. But the question is, are you doing the right things to get them to your exhibit, and then the right things in the exhibit? So here's the performance metric. How much of your interaction capacity did you actually utilize? All right, next metric, exhibit attraction efficiency. So let's say that I was able to trace 140 interactions, and by studying the demographics and the attendance and everything else, I could estimate that there were 500 dead ringer matches, people in that show audience that were perfect visitors for our booth. Okay, so how did I do? Well, I was only able to attract and interact with 28% of my profile match. Am I doing good? Bad? What? Well, Exhibit Surveys has a benchmark that sets it at 45%. Is that if you're not attracting and interacting with 45% of your audience, you are below industry averages, which means you've got to first take a look whether there are enough at the show, and second, what's going on with your exhibit. Okay? Something is not working. Okay? So exhibit attraction efficiency is a very important performance metric that we need to be running. Hardly any exhibitors run it. In fact, most of these metrics I'm showing you, how many of these did you know before today? Most exhibitors aren't running any of these, okay? You know, they're just, well, how many swipes did we get, or scans, or, you know, did we give away all of our literature, you know, stuff like that. We don't want to live in that area. If you want value and ROI, you've got to play this game with a little bit of science, which is what we're getting into here, exhibit attraction efficiency. All right, let's take a look at some financial performance metrics here, okay? The question is this: how much did you invest to put your company identity, your products, your staff face-to-face with a user, influencer, recommender, or decision maker? What was your cost per interaction? Simple formula to run. Total show investment divided by a number of interactions in the exhibit, and I have got a cost per interaction. Now, is it high? Is it low? Is it good? Is it bad? Depends on what you compare it to, okay? The average cost of a field sales call is $596, according to the latest research we can find on the topic. $596. So that's good, right? What am I doing? I'm cutting the cost, and they're surrounded with my company identity. The average cost per interaction in an exhibit, okay, in an exhibit is around $360. Write that down, $360, okay? So I'm comparing to that. Now, why is it important to know cost per interaction? Well, so I can show my financial team that we are, in fact, getting value, and I'll show you soft dollar ROI in a moment. CPI. You are definitely spending something to get face-to-face. This is a metric everybody can and should be running, okay? Next metric, easy to run, simple to run, okay? Cost per lead. Let me define lead at a high level. Anybody you or your team interacts with at the show that requires a next action step from your part, and that step delivers value for your company. So it's not just a brand new business opportunity. You know, anybody that you interact with at the show that requires follow-up and it delivers value for your company. Cost per lead, very simple formula to run. 30,000, 120 leads. My cost per lead, $250. Is it good? It's bad? High? Low? Again, what are you comparing to? Well, the North American average cost of a trade show lead is $360. That's one thing to compare it to. I'll tell you another thing you should be comparing it to. Other lead generation media your company's using. Maybe you're using direct mail. Maybe you're using print. Maybe you're using web. Okay, whatever other media. You should also be comparing it to all of the trade shows on your roster. What is your CPL across the board to all these shows you do? You know, hey, if it's 1,700 over here and it's 250 here, we need to be taking a look at this. What's going on over there, right? And here's a big thing you should compare it to. Your average sale amount or your value of a customer. Example. If you had a $500 sale amount and your lead acquisition cost was $250, 50% of your revenue is going to go straight to lead acquisition. You got a problem. On the other hand, if you had a $25,000 average sale amount and your cost per lead was $250, you're looking pretty good. Very little bit of your gross margin is going to go to lead generation. Cost per lead, simple formula run. I'm amazed at how few exhibitors run it. I have stood in exhibits, companies spending $3 million on a show and getting 100 leads and have never calculated cost per lead. And when they realize what they're paying, $30,000 per lead, their eyes about drop. I'm like, we got to be paying attention to this kind of stuff. Cost per lead, okay? Now, this is a performance metric that you should be running, okay? Number one, you need to go into every show with a very firm, clear lead goal like this, 150. So now I can track how many did we capture, 120, okay? So I achieved 80% of my lead goal for the show. From there, I can break it down into what percentage or number of A's, B's, C's. Okay, this is a performance metric. And some of you are probably asking, how do we set a lead goal? Remember exhibit interaction capacity I showed you a moment ago? Multiply that by 0.25. 1 out of 4 visitors to the average booth convert to a lead, and you'll be right on target, okay, to set a lead goal. Now, here's a financial performance metric. In fact, some of you that sell through dealers, distributors, independent reps, some of you that will never be able to close the loop on your leads, but you have got to have a way to show senior management how the program's delivering value, potential value of leads. Here's an example. So let's say you captured 120 leads at the show, and let's say that conservatively, the average revenue or sale for your company is $5,000. Multiply the two together, and you have generated $600,000 in potential lead value or revenue value for the company. Now, you could break out your A leads and have different weighting for your A's, your B's, and your C's so that you can see where this can get a little more complex. I'm giving you the high level here. Now watch this example. I go back after the show. I invested $30,000 in the show. I generated $600,000 in potential revenue value for the company. I have brought a 20-to-1 soft dollar return on investment. Every dollar my company invested generated $20 of potential revenue value measurably, okay? So this is another metric that can and should be run. I'm amazed at how few exhibitors are running it, okay? Now, let's talk ROI in terms of targets, okay? Let me show you 2 formulas. We'll wind down and take some questions here, okay? And I'm running just a few minutes over, so hang with me. Well, the first level is 1-to-1, okay? If you're not getting a 1-to-1, that's got to be your first target. You know, I give you $1, you give me $1, I give you that dollar back. That is 100% ROI, a 1-to-1 payback. It's not exciting, but I tell you what, it's a lot better than making an expensive appearance, which is what many of us are doing, okay? So I get it 1-to-1. Now, my next level is 3-to-5. I want to be in that $1 in, 3-to-5 back measurably over time, and that will be my second benchmark. And once I hit that benchmark, as high as I can go. I have clients that have pulled as high as 45-to-1 out of trade shows measurably. But you got to start somewhere, and for those of you who said, well, not satisfied, maybe you're not even at 1-to-1. Get the 1-to-1, target 3-to-5, and then as high as you can go. I promise you it's out there if you do it right, okay? I've been around this, 650 million. I know it's out there. It's just a matter of doing the right things to get it, measure it, and report it. All right, let's talk 2 types of ROI. Hard dollar, cash, checks, revenue that can be credited in full or in part. And this could be measured either in top-line revenue and or gross margin revenue. The question is, what does your CFO or your CMO, what do they want to see? How do they want to see ROI measurement? Top line, gross margin, okay? And the other type of ROI is soft dollar, value that can be quantified or expressed in numeric terms. It's typically going to be where you've saved something for the company. Listen carefully to this. I have many clients in your position who are bonused on documented cost savings for their company. There is some really cool things happen around shows that you can measure if you've got a system in play. Some of these things I'm showing you, bringing soft dollar ROI metrics showing savings can be extremely valuable for you and your career, okay? So let me give you the 2 examples. Here we go, hard dollar. Now, it's 6 months after the show. I can trace $220,000 in orders back to the people that we interacted with at and after the show. Now, if I'm going to go for gross margin ROI, because let's say my CFO wants to see that, then I have to back out my cost of sales. So in this example, I'm going to take out, I've got a 70% cost of sales. Now I have generated $80,000 in gross margin ROI for the company. But I have to back out my exhibiting investment because what I'm looking for is exhibiting ROI. So now I'm down to $50,000. Okay? So let me stop here for a moment. If your senior management wants to see top-line revenue, the formula gets really simple. Take your 220 divided by your $30,000 investment, okay? And you have got a 733%. $1 in, $7.33 of top line revenue. You're already winning the game. Now that would be top line, but if I'm going for gross margin revenue, I have to come over to the next screen. And so now I have to take my exhibit profit of 50, and again, that's gross margin, okay, divided by my investment of 30, and I've got 167%. Every dollar in generated $1.67 of gross margin revenue back. I'm still winning the game. I'm better than the 1-to-1. Okay, does that make sense? You could do top line, you could do gross margin. Actually, you could do both if you want to really track this. It might not be a bad idea to do both. Now, let's talk soft dollar. Remember the definition of soft dollar: value received that can be quantified or expressed in numeric or financial terms. So here we go. Our cost per interaction at the show was $214. Did I deliver value for my company? Did I deliver it measurably? That's the question. Well, when I compare it to what the cost of a field sales call at $596, and I back out my 214 CPI at the show, yes, I've cut the cost of putting a body in front of a body for my company by $382. Watch this. When I multiply it by the 140 interactions we generated through the exhibit, look what I've got. A $53,400 soft dollar return on investment. $1 in generated $1.78 in soft dollar savings, because there is a very real cost to put a body in front of a body out in the field. Most people have no idea what it is, and they're not tracking it. Hence, I share with you the cost of a field sales call metric at $596. All right, so final piece, and we'll hit some questions. The end game of inside the numbers and measuring and reporting performance and ROI is the creation of what I like to call an exhibiting performance and ROI report. And you can see that this report has 13 sections to it. And you don't have to get deep and super detailed here. This is it's an executive type read, but you can see that there's a lot that should be captured and should be reported. The show info, the goals and the progress, getting into our performance goals, capacity, utilization, and cost, leads, what our marketing was, our PR, the design, all this stuff here goes into that. And here's the beauty. Once you create this once for one of your tier 1 shows like AAO, now you've got a template you can plug and play across working backwards. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in a very short period, and I know some of you, your heads are probably swimming. Man, that was a lot. The good news is this: you've got it in your workbook. The good news is we've recorded this, and we're going to upload it to the AAO Resource Center. And I challenge you to take as many of these metrics, a balance of performance metrics and financial performance metrics, and I challenge you to start measuring, because if you will, you're going to find out that you are getting tremendous value measurably from the time and money you're investing in shows, and that's what this whole thing is about. Okay, so with that, I'm going to throw it open for questions. While I take a look, let's see. Oh, we've got several questions. Hey, and by the way, if you're logging off right now, watch your email for that survey. We need your feedback for sure. If you wanted that exhibit cost control ROI calculator, email me at jefferson@tradeshowturnaround.com. For those of you that are going right now, thanks a million for logging in. Use what you learn here. Those of you who are hanging around for just a few more minutes, so let me take your questions here. Here we go. Okay, here's a question. Based on what I just said, how do I get senior management to buy in when they don't see the sales at the show, just the expense? Okay. What senior managers want to know, certainly, what are we spending? What are we getting? Okay. And if sales is the name of the game, okay, what you've got to do is put into play a closed loop lead management system. if they're saying, I want to see where we're getting the money, you got to start measuring, okay? And, you know, if you have the type of product, you know, whether it's an instrument and you're, you know, selling at the show, and with the international attendees, there's a lot of that going on at shows, good, then you can pick the low-hanging fruit. But for most of you who are selling devices and equipment and things like that, you're going to have to get better quality leads. You're going to have to get some way to get whoever's receiving these leads to report back what happened to these leads, and you're going to have to be able to trace value. If you can't close the loop on it, you've got to go to some of these metrics I showed you in here, you know, in terms of cost per interaction, cost per lead, potential revenue value created. The end game would be being able to go back and close the loop to give senior management what they want. And you know, the reality, again, a lot of you probably are getting ROI, but no measurements are in play, so they can't see it. And so it's incumbent upon us to put these measurements into play. Okay? We've got a question on how often or how long should I measure ROI? Two factors. The length of your sales cycle. How long is your sales cycle? If you have a long, complex sales cycle that is an 18 to 24-month cycle, then you're not going to be able to really measure until about 18 to 24 months. So that's one factor. The other factor is the frequency of the show. The AAO annual meeting being an annual meeting, comes every year, then in that case, you're going to want to be taking a strong look under the hood at 90 days, 180 days, 9 months at the latest. Okay, so again, it's all about the length of your sales cycle and the frequency of the show. Okay, and again, the key on this hard dollar ROI conundrum, it's going to come from either at show and or post-show sales. So you've got to be able to close the loop if you're going to do that. Let's see if there are any more questions. Yeah, here we go. A few more. Thank you. Okay, so if you're committing 85% of your annual budget to trade shows versus the standard, do you give up floor location to downsize? No, not necessarily. The problem with a lot of us that are, quote, 85% of our budget is going to trade shows is you're doing a lot of junk shows. You probably got 40, 50, 70, 80 shows on your calendar, and if you start putting measurement in play, you can start cutting the dead weight. There's a lot of shows, you know, most exhibitors are running from show to show to show to show, have no measurement in play, and so sometimes your measurement system will flesh out your underperforming shows so you can drop them off the calendar, whether it goes straight to budget, bottom line, or whether you reallocate in the better shows like AAO. It could go either way, okay? And, you know, once again now, you know, when you see that industry benchmark of 40, and if you're saying we're at 85%, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. I would also ask you to think about how important is face-to-face contact to your company in acquisition and retention of customers, and besides trade shows, what other channels do you have for getting quality face time? So you may have that FaceTime is critical, and you just really don't have that many other options, and therefore investing more than the 40% is not a bad thing. And let me reiterate that, because that's something I said before and I want it to stick. Just because you're above or below an average doesn't make it wrong, okay? But it does require that you look under the hood and say, why are we so much above, okay? And then how do we, on any investment, how do we get measurable value, which is what the whole kind of topic here today has been about, okay? Let me see. Someone's asking me, give me an example of gross margin and top line revenue. Top line revenue is the sale amount, right? An order comes in, it's a $2,500 order, that's top line. Gross margin is when you back out your cost of sales, whatever those are, okay? And in the example I gave you, I said, okay, so if you had a 70% cost of sale, then you had a 30% gross margin. So top line is the sale, gross margin is backing out the cost of sales, okay? Well, that is it. All I'm seeing for questions. I want to close this up by really thanking you for logging in today and investing this time. I promise you that whatever you are getting right now in terms of ROI, odds are really good that you're only picking the low-hanging fruit. That what you can get, if you will start planning, marketing, executing, and measuring, what you can get from trade shows will blow your mind. But you can't just show up and think it's going to happen just by being there. You got to do your part. And what's cool is you've got an incredible partner in AAO, okay, from Anna and Deborah and the entire team who are doing everything they can do to help you succeed. You got to do your part. If you will, I can close this not by wishing you a successful, profitable annual meeting. Guarantee you'll have one, but you got to use what you learned. So thanks for logging in, everybody. I look forward to seeing you. I will be at the show. You got questions, email me, call me. Otherwise, we're on our way to the AAO meeting. So thanks for logging in, everybody.